Howdy my friends and welcome to the channel today. I'm Luke, Thunderhead289 here on YouTube. In this video today we're going to get the Ford F750 here behind me ready to go to the good guys in Des Moines. I suppose I could drive there just fine right now, but you know, I just can't leave nothing alone. And I got this Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor that I want to try and throw on it. Right now it sports a 2-barrel Holly, which is fine, but it's pretty big, 500 CFM for the RPM range that this truck runs in. So this is a, comparatively sized Edelbrock, but being a 4-barrel, you have a lot more control over your CFM supply in comparison with your CFM demand. So we're going to see how this goes. This is the AVS. It is the AVS 2 unit. Look at that, already installed. I'm totally leaving that in there. So holy cow. Anyway, so we'll get to that here in a moment. Off to a good start, I see. Before we get to that, there's a few things that stress me out on this truck that just have to go. For one, these trailer style indicator lights, I don't know how they look on camera, but if you look, they're like crooked. So I just can't take it anymore. I think factory, these would have had round units. So, I don't know. They're definitely for trailers, because if you look right out here, looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? So got that going on. And then what else here? It's pretty nice truck inside. The guy redid the seat, has new carpet. Pretty fun to drive, but a few little aesthetic items. And then this has got to go, I know some of you guys like that. I know some of you guys like the exhaust. I'm gonna have to change that really quick. But yeah, just a few things here, and then we can make the truck a whole lot less weird looking, in my opinion. And this isn't me trying to rag on other people's builds, I want you to understand that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but in this case, I'm the beholder and this isn't beauty. I'm not sure what I like would be called beauty either, but it's different than this. All right, in my opinion, way better. Now this is the one I just took off this side, and you can see the flasher on the side. I think that was an accident. I think they meant to put this one over here. I'm not sure, but interesting that the flasher was towards the hood. All right, the moment I've all been waiting for to see how ugly it is. Yeah, pretty ugly, but much more so the look that I'm going for here, so. I think I like it better with these off. It has more of that raw dystopia wasteland look, which, that's kind of my thing anyway around here, but it's kind of a shame. It's got the full set of these, and I don't really know what they're worth, but I should probably sell them off. To be fair, I would have tried them on the front, but my wife made so much fun of me for these that I wasn't going to endure any more ridicule and just remove them, but I'm not entirely sad that I did. And against my better judgment here, I like the look of the back of this truck, these big fat meats, but not necessarily the exhaust. And this one's good and loose, so that's a recent discovery. So anyway, I think I'm going to get the old Sawzall out and unfortunately cut those out of there. Probably a mistake, but I'm going to do it. The real important questions of life here, before or after the muffler. And you know what, actually, it's clamped on before the muffler. Let's cut it after the muffler, and then if we don't like it, we can just unclamp and slip off the muffler. Actually, before we do any of that, why don't we just take a listen to it as it is now, and then we'll cut the muffler off. And I don't know, we'll have a pretty good comparison, I think. Let's give that a shot. So here we go, some cold start action here. So we can hop up in here. Such a nice truck, except for all the things that aren't nice. Okay, there we go, neutral, that's important since this thing will drive itself through a brick wall. All right, here we go. Oh, almost. Not too bad. I love how tight the steering is on this truck. Someone did a lot of work with the steering and brakes to make this all work good. And you know, I don't know, not terrible, just kind of annoying. That cackle thing that it does, I don't know how much I appreciate that. So I think I'm just gonna unbolt the mufflers and I should be able to slide all this off without cutting anything. And then we'll see what that sounds like. Probably even stupider, but at least we'll know. And I know you grammar cross your I's and dot your T's type folks are gonna say, oh, there's no such word as stupider, it's more stupid. I get comments like that all the time, just to break the fourth wall here. So, you know, obviously I'm not an English genius, all right? Look what I'm doing here. And obviously I gotta get the ignition wired back on here correctly. Ford resistive lead things, and anyway, got some relays to do that. Let's rip this exhaust off. So the good news is that this is loose, so really good deal. I thought I was gonna have to get the grinder out, but dang old heck, if you look at right there, it's got a little weld bridge on it that I'm gonna have to get the grinder out anyway. What do you know? So 10 years later, gotta catch my breath here. 10 years later, I got the exhaust finagled out of there. I just didn't want to destroy it in case I ever did want to put it back on. But personally, I like the way it looks much better. You know, you're not breaking up the symmetry of the big old meats, and just the back end of the thing looks proper at this point. Let's fire it up and see what she sounds like. Man, this stuff was a lot easier when I was young. Good grief. All right, here we go. I assume it'll be at least a tinge bit louder. One would surely think. Now that's more so what I'd expect something that looks like this to sound like. It's so hot out here today, my camera mount just melted right off my window. That's pretty exciting. I don't even want to admit it, but the throttle response is actually better this way too. So, is it a win? No, because now we look like an idiot, but I like it, I guess. Now you guys are smart, and you probably already noticed this, but I just did. I believe this exhaust is actually made out of fence posts. The gauge is really thick, and just some of the bend radiusing, you know, yeah, I don't think this was exhaust tubing. Look at that guy, thick with 2 C's. I'm just gonna set this over with my other fence posts, and in fact, some of my fence posts look like they're not even as thick a gauge as whatever this stuff is. So if I ever need a fence with some mufflers on it, boy, I'm all set up at this point. I think we've had enough fun with all that tomfoolery. Getting back to the task at hand here, we have our 4-barrel Edelbrock we're going to throw on here. And in front of me, I have a Ford FE 4-barrel intake. Now, this is an FE intake, Ford Edsel E, what is that? Fox Echo, all right. And this is an FT, a Fox Tango engine. So it's a little bit different. It was set up for grain trucks, different things, which this truck originally was. It has a forged bottom end, and but it wasn't super RPM capable. It was mainly meant for low-end torque. Now, what Ford did that was super weird is they basically took the FE and changed little nuancy things all throughout. So ironically, even though they look the same, smell the same, taste the same, they're not the same engine. And ironically, this 4-barrel intake will not go on the engine down there with the cylinder heads and everything. So I think we're going to have to leave the 2-barrel, and I think we're going to have to open the door to some creativity here. But these are just big megalithic things. You know, if you've never worked on an FE, these are 77 to 82 pounds, and they feel like 182 pounds when you're leaning over a hood trying to rip one off. Now I want you to appreciate what you're about to see here. We're going to more than likely remove this carb, yep, it's already loose, without ever ripping the gasket. So if you remember, you followed me for a while, you know that I'm someone who I really rub a high amount of wheel bearing grease into my gaskets before I install them. See if we can get this guy off here. You can see it makes it so they set this aside. They just don't stick to anything, they seal real well, and as long as you put them back on in the same orientation, you can just keep reusing them. So if you had to do carb work, you know, you could do that, put it back on, and you're not destroying a gasket and just spending time scraping gaskets off and everything. It's really nice. Things just come apart super easy. Piece of grass, interesting. And our bottom gasket here, which is often the most precarious, there we go. So a lot of times you guys see me putting grease on gaskets, but you never actually get to see what that looks like several months or years down the road. So this is a prime example of just the dividends that it does pay, ouch, for taking the extra second. Always hitting my head on those. It's definitely one thing about Fords that I do not like. Their hood latches are just egregious. Man, it's a lot nicer in this garage. Taking a look here to see if we can find something to be creative with, and this is something I toyed with for a long time with Carb Cheater, but we never released any. Here's kind of a 3D printed prototype version, but a 2 to 4-barrel adapter. Now there's a lot of junk ones that are made, but there's never any good insulative ones made. So I'm not going to tell you what material this is, but it's super fancy, and we should be able to put our 4-barrel Edelbrock on our 2-barrel FT manifold, since we really don't have any other options, and I'm super curious to see how it works. This isn't what I intended to test it on, but heck, today's as good a day as any. And for those of you that follow the channel, the 64 here has made it up into the main garage. It's a shame it sat so long, but it's definitely nice to have it back. My wife and I, when we go anywhere together, that's the vehicle that we take. It's her favorite old car that we have aside from the Volkswagen, but all that aside, oh, and the Maverick. Everyone always asks about the Maverick because I don't do videos with it anymore. It is still my daily driver, you know, but I think we're beating a dead horse to film anything with that car. It's just a good, solid car, and nothing ever goes wrong. Good old 302 4-speed top loader. Gets it right down the road, no problem. It's an ugly car, but, you know, I'm an ugly person, so it fits. So it looks like I can do math okay. Fit and finish is pretty good. with the 2 to 4 barrel adapter. And this is a good setup where it's not going to have vacuum leaks like the other adapters that you've seen. So that, get out of here, hose. That, let's see what our new Edelbrock carburetor looks like that we're about to just completely do it a disservice by putting it on this engine. All right, so let's see what's in here. Some installation instructions, some gaskets, and a carb stud, questionable cheap filter. I do like their packaging here, and I will say Edelbrock did not pay me to do this. And like I said, everyone thinks that I hate Edelbrocks, and that is definitely far from the truth. Especially with this AVS2, it's a real good unit. So I like that they're an American company that actually still makes their own stuff, which can't be said for other manufacturers. And the outright mechanical nature of an Edelbrock, you know, they really do a good job of standing the test of time. A little less tunable, but not all that bad for what they are. All right, here we go. First Edelbrock I've installed on something, a new one in a few years. I've worked on them fairly frequently for folks, but looking good. Oh, I wish I was a little bit taller. Get back here, these rear studs. It's all looking good. Way too good for this engine. Now I do love Edelbrock carburetors quite a bit, and to be fair, this is being pretty darn nitpicky of me here, but compared to a Holley, it's always really irritating trying to bolt it down, especially in something like this, or if you're, you know, not 6'5" or 7 when I have boots on like I am, you know, you can't get to the back bolts. So like in this case, I really can't, and I'll just show you here, but you can't see them. And then with these AVS2s, it's kind of hard to get to. You got to use the open end of the wrench, and mildly agitating. Does that make them bad carbs? No, but it's just something to be ready for if you do buy one. Way back in there, you can't very easily get a boxed end on that, so you know it's mildly frustrating. Not that it can't be done, but just something to be aware of. Boy, I tell you what, it's a good thing I'm young and I can do some of this gymnastic accordion stuff. And it still makes my back hurt like a son of a gun. Okay, I think we got it on there. All the way back out of here. So the carbs landed, all the vacuum is capped or plumbed correctly for what's on this vehicle. The fuel line is ran with the supplied fuel filter from Edelbrock, this brand Cuss. Yeah, we've done a little bit of that on this installation. Some things here from converting to a Ford to a Edelbrock. Ford style, you know, Autolite, Holley is kind of more so a Ford carburetor. The throttle linkage does not reach, so I'm hoping I can adjust that. This isn't a fault of the Edelbrock, it's just some design differences. And the choke cable also does not reach for the manual choke. So I think I'm just curious to see what's gonna happen. I've adjusted nothing. Technically this is out of the box, big quotes. So I think I'm just gonna fill the bowl vents here on the Edelbrock and then roll it over and see what she does. Man, this wiring really irritates me. I should have, right when I bought it, I should have fixed it, but you know, is what it is. Now, as sketchy as it sounds, syringes are actually a pretty handy thing to have around if you work on a lot of carburetors. Now, some of you guys have made some pretty good points about bringing the syringe up a little bit so there's an air gap between the gasoline. A little tricky to do with one hand here. So that way it doesn't get the plunger all soaked in gas and kind of ruin it. So we're going to slide in here. This is an Edelbrock bowl vent. Syringe is almost too big, so I'm going to do this probably 3 or 4 times on either side, and then we should be able to fire it and see what it's going to do. Should be all filled up here. You can see the accelerator pump is working, so we got plenty of fuel in our bowls. So at this point I think we're ready to hit the key and maybe move our gasoline so it's not right next to everything that will make it burst into flames, huh? Probably be smart. All right, the moment I've all been waiting for. So we'll see if it fires right off the key. Now, I don't believe in this whole right out of the box thing. You know, a carburetor can run, they're very forgiving, but even if something isn't perfect right out of the box, you know, that's not the carburetor's fault. There's like a singular carburetor design, and settings are trying to handle a wide range of potential applications. And to sit there and fault a carburetor manufacturer for that is just completely insane. You know, that's like on the Dunning-Kruger curve, that's like peak of Mount Stupid level. So all of that considered, and enough of my monologue here, we have put fuel into the intake, so in theory, should start. That's not too bad. I don't have a throttle lever here. I should be able to work the throttle under the hood here by hand. I do have to say, for settings, it's pretty respectable. Man, that's good. That is way better than that 2-barrel. Now the throttle response is exceptionally crisp in comparison to the 500 CFM 2-barrel, but you have to remember, you're rocking 500 CFM on 2 barrels. When you hit the throttle, I mean, you're getting into all of that, proportionally way more CFM supply than demand, and you know, it just makes for a weak throttle response. Now this is a properly sized carburetor. I want to say it's a 500 CFM AVS2, and so, you know, it's a square bore, so the primaries are only 250 CFM, so you have a lot better control proportionally over your CFM supply, and that's why our throttle response is so good, and why I'm sure overall it's going to perform better. It's not because the Holly was a piece of junk, okay? It's nothing like that. It's just, if you match the appropriate CFM to the job, you know, you're going to have some pretty good results. Blows my mind. Careful not to put my hand in the fan. So, just exceptional throttle response. So all you Edelbrock guys, including Edelbrock the company, see, I don't hate you guys. Look, see, we got an Edelbrock on here and it's doing great. I feel bad. Edelbrock talked to me the other day and they're like, "Why do you hate us so much?" I'm like, I even have a carburetor on the shelf. I'm waiting to put on something, you know. It really hurt me because I've always liked them as a company. It's just, I have Holly stuff, I guess, but if that doesn't make a believer out of just the arbitrary person, I don't know what does. You know, I've long believed Edelbrocks to be good carbs, and that right there is a pretty prime example. So let me get this all squared away and we can hit the road and drive this thing. You know, we're going to need a throttle cable for that, I imagine. Unfortunately, on our throttle cable, we appear to be at the maximum amount of adjustment. So, you know, this naturally can't be easy, but I think I'm going to just cut a section out of this bolt, cut this, and kind of extend it, and then it looks like we'll have plenty of adjustment to shorten it as need be. So I don't think it's going to be too terrible. And if you were curious, no, I did not try to make this look pretty, but it is straight. Are you gonna, shh, quiet. So anyway, I think it'll work just fine, but it's definitely nothing to look at, that's for sure. But I got that in common with it at least. Little intermission here, I gotta feed Ding and Dong. Normally we have them on pasture and we don't have to do this, but my wife's gone, and They're just these horses, they're Oberlander horses, and they can like get fat on air. It's the weirdest thing. So yeah, you're gonna get the bad grass hay, so you slim down. Don't step on my feet. All right. The horses are definitely my wife's thing, not mine. So don't want anyone to think I'm a crazy horse person, although I think like car guys are the equivalent of a crazy horse girl, but just in the man's world. I don't know. What do you think? Thinks he wants his food. All right, I think we have a functional throttle now. The throttle's a little sticky back there, but wow, that actually has cleaned up quite a bit. So convenient. Didn't think that'd be that easy. So with that, naturally, got all that done, and a big bad old storm's rolling in. What do you know? Seems like as good a time as any to see if our throttle works. I don't expect it to start super easy because it's probably completely flooded from playing with the throttle lever excessively. There it goes. A little on the rich side at the moment. That'll clean up here. Now the trick here is going to be returning to idle. So kind of hanging a higher idle right there, and then it idles down, so not too bad. I might just let her go, so that'll probably clean up here. Not too bad. It's getting less and less C's. Just look how easy this steering wheel turns. That's most impressive power steering. I don't think we need this, whatever this is. Dash isn't even that bad. Too bad I can't get this out of here. It's day 2 here, and Ding Dong thinks she's going to get some mowing in before this big rainstorm comes in. So we have a little running bet to see, because I said, I'm not gonna mow today. You're gonna get rained on out in the middle of it, but you know, I'm known to lose bets with my wife, and we'll just see here today. Oh, do you want me to get the gate or what? Just the perfect Emily-sized tractor. I think these came in like Happy Meals back in the 30s or 40s. At this point, I've changed all the fluids in this thing, retimed the engine, set the valve lash, and the thing just runs real good. I always get a kick out of the fact that the guy holding it's a pretty menacing looking cloud over there. The guy holding the camera always looks like he's not doing anything, but in this case, that's probably true. Oh, she's getting in the thick stuff. We're just gonna let her go and see what happens. So getting back to it, the throttle cable that's factory of this truck here and the Settlebrock carburetor are not playing nice with each other. No fault of either items, it's just kind of the way this is working out. I was going to draw you this nice graph and we were going to go through this thing, but you know, that's too technical. There's only one thing that's actually important about setting up a throttle cable, and it's really obvious, but you know, a lot of people don't look into it and they just end up leaving a ton of power on the table, where they could otherwise have done something simple and not done that. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. I see why I threw 2 fingers here, because there actually is 2 things that are very important. One of them, fairly obvious, you want the carburetor to return to idle. So you'll definitely know if that's not happening. But the other one, if you don't look into this, is you just really need to make sure you're getting full throttle out of the carburetor. At least 99, 98%, somewhere in there. You don't want to have over 100%, because in that case you end up bending the bracket and you know, you're going to have issues. Not good. And so, you know, having to alter, I guess. We're kind of limited to our axis of rotation, yada yada science words. So we're just changing the geometry here, you know, Pythagoras, he'd be proud, so that we can go back to idle and still get full travel. And that's causing us to have to alter some of our mounting points on the carb and the throttle to be able to make this happen. You know, before I only had like, I don't know, maybe 60% travel out of the throttle, which would not have been good. So here we are kind of mocked up on the throttle here. So I'm gonna go full throttle with the gas pedal. And now we're gonna go full throttle with the carb. And if we're catching this hole that I wanna catch here on the carb, you can see it goes right in where I want it to. So unfortunately it took a little bit more modification than maybe the average chap can do, but I'm sure you guys can be creative just like I am with what you have and make something work. So I think we got that figured out. Everything's hooked up and looks good, but as you can see now our throttle is binding on the spring. These are all things you want to check before you hit the road. Ow, man. Genius. Anyway, before you become a road hazard to everyone else, I think I can simply flip this spring around and then it'll clear just fine. But you can see, you know, it works good. Full throttle, bind. So that would be a pretty sub-ideal scenario. I think I'm about to lose a bet and owe somebody dinner because the storm passed, it didn't rain, and well, she's out there doing my job naturally. Once again, making me look bad like she does. This must be what you shorter folks feel like working on like normal pickup trucks. Maybe. Looking pretty good here, at least functional and safe to some degree. Made a spring bracket here with some old junk aluminum, same thing we made the throttle lever out of. And so now the previous issue was our spring was right in line with the pivoting axis of the carb, and basically once it got over center, you know, it would bind up. This way here it's always staying below, so we have good full throttle here, and then it returns no problem. Dang near got to take a minute. That took a lot more effort than it should have to make all that linkage work, but you know, you're working with an old grain truck and kind of a modern carburetor. Modern carburetor, is that something that people even use together in a sentence? So anyway, first time rolling the truck here, we're gonna be able to hit the key with our foot. Hit the gas pedal with our foot. Been a long day, all right. I love an engine that just fires up when you bump the key. I did a lot of ignition work on this truck in a previous video, so the ignition timing's dialed. And this carburetor is, to Edelbrock's credit, pretty darn good. All right, here we go. No tack, unfortunately, at least not yet. She's a snappy little engine now. All right, I like it. It sounds and runs exactly like what it looks like it should sound and run like. I don't know, ignorant, I guess. But all of that aside, you know, this throttle linkage stuff, again, super important. Obviously makes a huge difference here. Definitely not something to skimp on, and a lot of people do. So with that, I got a lot more to do. I actually have a spare carb cheater I'm gonna throw on this thing and some other stuff, but I can't help myself. I've just waited way too long at this point to drive it down the road with this 4-barrel on it. So without further ado, before I run out of light today, I'm gonna do it before something else creeps up on me and pulls me away from this. I always forget how big this thing is until I see it outside. So it's absolutely a huge truck. Over here is my 76 F250, and it looks like a little tiny Ford Ranger compared to this thing. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's definitely a massive rig. All right, good old grain truck 5-speed. We don't have the 2-speed rear end anymore. So this is technically 2, one being a granny low. Man, the steering is just so good on this truck. You just wouldn't think it would be. This is just the most ignorant feeling thing to drive. I don't know if it picks it up in the cam, but boy, she's a bumpy rig. Good. See how much torque we have. We just pull this turn out of 3. Sure can. Oh, bumpy road and a narrow bridge. Oh boy. Thing is a blast to drive now. Holy cow. Definitely feels risky, you know. Kind of a weird life and death thing every time you hammer on it. Definitely feels like one of the more stupid things you would see on the road. Definitely everyone stares at you. I don't know if it's for good reasons or bad reasons, but sure gets a lot of looks one way or another. Just casually hanging out places that I totally don't belong, making an absolute menace of myself. Just another day in the life, I figure. Casually trying to find a place to park this big old son of a gun in here. Definitely not what I would call a maneuverable vehicle. You gonna sell this thing today or what?
Probably not. You're gonna need these.
Nah, I like my organs and my eardrums to vibrate. Pretty slick old drag car that Joe has here. Gonna go scoop the loop in it and see how she does. Joe has a lot cooler stuff than I do, obviously. Riding with Joe here on our lunch break. Your headliner is looking a little rough these days.
Yeah, it's not great.
But just a little carb cheater update, because I don't talk about it a lot because it keeps us so busy as is. You can see we got a full vehicle here. We put these up, what was it like? This batch we got ready and it was sold out in 26 hours. And so anyway, we're trying to keep up with it, but you know, we both work a day job here and this takes a lot of time, but so far so good.
Yep.
I'm gonna just watch you unload those and give you the thumbs up. Sound good?
Oh. Yep.
Sounds about right, don't it? This is Joe's Fairmont wagon here. It has an inline 6, and he put a T5 5-speed in it. He bought specifically to haul Carb Cheaters because he does pretty much all of the production of it now. So, do I even pull my weight around here?
Depends on the day.
Okay, so there you go, some
Right
honest.
now you're not.
No, fair. But you can see, just you must have air shocks in this thing. Those aren't light.
Definitely had to put air shocks in.
All right, so I'm gonna get on to helping Joe here before he's entirely done without me ever doing anything. But I don't know, dude, pretty cool. Just a couple of idiots here kind of making it work. I ended up hurting, not helping. Apparently not all of these are for USPS. Some of these are UPS, and ironically those are, what was the story with those? Those are all international. That's so weird. It's so weird to see them over in Europe and I guess Australia and everywhere else. Pretty neat.
We're for like 16 countries now, I think.
That's strange. Who would ever thought?
That's the place to get it.
Oh. She's got some pretty nice melons over there.
Real nice balance.
Oh, she looked. This is a true test here of just how good your carburetor tune is and just how well your engine can handle heat at stuff like this. So I'm getting hung up in traffic pretty bad. And this Edelbrock that I've never touched yet at this point whatsoever is actually doing a stupendous job of managing the temp and everything. We have a really good insulative spacer on there too, but it's fairly incredible. Pretty cool deal. Once a year, there's 4,000 cars here, so pretty significant. Seemingly a pretty popular attraction, probably because it's so absurd looking. Joe, myself, and Lee here trying to figure out what's going on with this rig. There's a flathead up front, but then there's another fairly massive Ford engine out back with a transmission, and this is powering the rear end. So, all right, I got to see what's going on here. A transfer case thing. Are these both going into the same deal? I understand even less after crawling under here.